Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the Unbroken Veterans podcast. Today, we're talking about moving veterans forward, and we're sitting here with Joe Hunter and Ron Hernandez. Gentlemen, if you'd like to introduce yourselves.
Ron Hernandez, the founder of Moving Veterans Forward.
Joe Hunter, I'm the executive director and CEO. I joined the organization in July of 2025. Ron's been kind of overseeing things since 2010, 2011, and he's kind of the brainchild of the operation here.
Fantastic. So, what's the, for starters, what's the best way veterans can access your program? I'm assuming it probably has to do with the internet, but I just want to confirm that.
Yeah, so we're by and large a referral-based agency here in the Omaha metro area. When a vet is in need, them or their caseworker will reach out to us either via an online form or through a phone conversation with one of our support representatives that will get them set up for the programming that we provide. A lot of that takes place again either in the phone universe or the online universe.
hmm
So those are probably the two best methods for veterans to reach us and connect.
So both telephone number and website slash email.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So can you shed more light on how your program works, where it comes in, kind of where the left and right limits are, if you will, uh, and how kind of the step process of someone utilizing moving veterans forward.
You want me to handle that?
Yeah, I'll let you take that.
Pretty much what we do is we get to do the fun part. I mean, nobody likes to be homeless. That's a bad thing. But I always tell everybody we get to be Santa Claus every day. Once a veteran has gone through the system, and it's anywhere from a couple months, sometimes these guys are in the system for a year, getting all their health, mental, psychological needs taken care of. And once they're stable, their caseworkers will then reach out to us. And we get to furnish that home with all the household items that they need, a bed, furniture, dishes, pots, pans. We give them at least a good couple of weeks worth of food because most of these guys, they're homeless. They've lost everything. They don't have a car.
Right.
Um, that's pretty much what we do. The veteran doesn't have to pay for anything. They get everything for free. We have trucks and trailers. We load it all up. We deliver it to the veteran. And like I said, we're kind of like Santa Claus. We come rolling in the morning with everything that they need, set up their home, and um, that's pretty much the nutshell that we do. We do a little bit of follow up just to make sure that they're transitioning okay, because that is a big culture shock when you're going from either a hospital or a structured facility that they're at, where they're getting 3 meals a day. Their buddies are there. They're going through group therapy, so they're already structured. Now you're putting them into a home. A lot of times in a neighborhood they're unfamiliar with. They have no friends. So it is somewhat of a culture shock for them, and we want to make sure we're not setting them up for failure. So we sometimes follow up with the veteran just to make sure they're transitioning pretty good.
Yeah, that's that follow-up piece sounds like possibly one of the more important parts of the whole thing.
Mhm.
Far as placement, so can you walk me through kind of where the locations are that they get placed and maybe how that comes about?
Uh, we're pretty lucky here in Omaha, Nebraska. We have a facility called Victory Apartments. It's ran by the Burlington Group. They are a management facility, but they purchased an old hospital slash college here in Omaha, and they converted it into apartments for our homeless veterans. The great thing is in that facility, Victory Apartments, the VA actually has an office there, and that's where all the caseworkers are for the HUD-Bash program.
Oh,
And then throughout the Omaha area, there's a few facilities, or I should not call it facilities, there's a few apartment complexes to where over the years they've moved a couple of veterans in there and they found out, hey, this is a great thing. So now one entire apartment building, that's where all the veterans are going into. So they actually have their own little community there where each veteran will kind of look out for each other. And it's been kind of neat because sometimes the one apartment complex here in Omaha, Grover Square Apartments, the guys know our trucks when we come rolling in, and you'll get a couple veterans will actually come out and introduce themselves. Hey, I'm Joe Smith, and
Oh,
just kind of breaks that ice for that new veteran coming in. And then we have a couple landlords that some other apartments that are spread out through Omaha that we work with as well. So we're pretty lucky here.
that's awesome. That's fantastic. For people to support uh moving, excuse me, moving veterans forward, what's a good way they can donate money, they can donate items, or am I totally off on how that even works?
Our website's the best place to find all that information. We're actually kind of going through a retrofit phase of how we do our item donation process right now. But it'll all still be based on our website at mvfne.org. We have
Yeah.
all of our public donation forms that are up on that site. If a monetary contribution is what you want to do, if you want to make an item contribution and you don't live in the area, we have our Amazon wish list even linked on that website. So
Oh, cool.
um, the particular household goods and some of those items that we need on a weekly basis that maybe we haven't gotten from a donation standpoint in the previous, couple of weeks. If we need, more butter knives or spoons or something, the Amazon wish list gets updated weekly so we can reach out to folks and say, hey, if you want to provide something, but you don't necessarily live in the area, you can't physically drop it off to us, or we can't physically come pick it up from you.
Mhm.
That's the best space for you to contribute and give back to the vets in our area.
Awesome. Yeah, I see this operation will be here. And then, of course, the list of furnish, equip, and move. And
Yeah.
2,499 veteran moves, 3,424 individuals touched. What year did you guys start?
We actually, our anniversary's coming up. Don't laugh. April 1st was the very first day we moved a veteran, um, 2010. So our 15th anniversary is coming up here in a month and a half.
That's what, so the company I work for on the civilian side, this is our 15th year. We started in 2010, also on April 1st.
Oh,
So
wow, it's cool.
yeah, that's funny.
It's a funny
But that
coincidence.
is, so what?
It's a funny coincidence how the world
It,
works that way
it
sometimes.
is, it really is. Um, but yeah, those numbers are amazing for 15 years. I mean, trying to think about all that it takes to make those things happen. So that's fantastic.
And
Now,
that's just right here in the Omaha metropolitan area. That's not like regional throughout 4 or 5 states. That's just right here in town.
And that's also all volunteer led. Like
yeah,
I'm the first and only paid staff member as of July of last year, and my time is not necessarily spent doing the moves. It's building the infrastructure,
right.
soliciting donations, building the fundraising model that it allows us to sustain that model.
Hmm.
Uh, the folks doing the moves, they're volunteering their time, and most of them, I would say a majority of them, are veterans or actively serving still. So we have a very unique sort of network of people that we get to work with every day. I tell everyone I have the best job in the world. I get to work with the most interesting people in the world because everybody that comes into this space has different backgrounds, different career fields, but they all were serving the same mission and the same focus. And they get to come here and they get to do the same thing that they did in their professional lives. Um,
That's awesome.
and it's truly remarkable to watch the Air Force and the Army guys and the Navy guys come together.
Yeah.
There's
Oh,
certainly some camaraderie and some maybe ball busting that goes on some days
yeah,
depending
some
on
good
what's going
ribbon
on.
that goes
Oh
on.
yeah, but
Did they end up
that's
doing
what makes
any?
it interesting.
Did they all end up doing any pranks and stuff for the ones that all live in the same complex?
Uh, the um, the veterans, they they there's a lot of poking with the veterans that we moved to, especially down at Victory Apartments. Um, there's a large. I'm thinking there's what 100.
They've
There's
got
a
they've got 100+
Yeah,
units.
100. I think I want to say it's 130 apartments at Victory
Wow.
Apartments. So there's a lot of camaraderie there. They do a lot of activities there, and uh, Yeah, it's kind of neat. It's like walking back into an old MWR where just everybody's just having a good time and kind of sticking it to each other. So
The Army guys and their acronyms. You have to write them down because I
yeah,
can't keep up some days.
Well, I'll say I'm an Army guy, and you know what's funny is some of us, I say some of us because I'm sure I'm not the only one. There's a lot of acronyms. I don't know what they stand for, but I know how to use them in a sentence. So I'll just be able to understand what people mean, and carry on with my day and not have any idea what it stands for. But then the other thing I like to do is I'll make up what they stand for, and then
hmm
I'll tell people intentionally the wrong thing and
yeah,
see what happens. Like TOC is Tactical Operations Center, but in the reserve at least, probably in active duty too. A lot of times they're in a tent. And so I tell new officers that it stands for tent of command, and then I just see how far that carries them.
yeah.
But that's yeah. So in the just out of curiosity, in the apartment complex, like, is there a clubhouse or anything where they can all gather and do stuff, or they just kind of gather outside maybe? Granted, Nebraska in the winter I know is rough. I'm down here in Kansas City.
There are common areas, but we also try to be intentional about that. We don't want anyone to ever feel like it's a clinical sort of situation. So
Yeah,
we
yeah,
try and host peer-to-peer events here in our shop, whether you want to watch, March Madness is coming up. So we'll try and go down there every other week and grab folks for March Madness on Saturdays or something. We'll have food, we'll have some soda and water here at the shop. We have a beautiful pond and a park behind our facility currently. So if they want to go out and walk around, if they want to just hang out and chill, they can kick their feet up on a table that's not somewhere that feels necessarily clinical to them.
yeah.
It's really important to build that sort of sense of comfort, but also that sense of belonging, and that doesn't always happen right away in a new environment. So we want them to be comfortable here where we're at. And this can be a neutral space for that.
Good, good. And then, um, as far as the support of them living there, are there ground rules for getting to stay there? I'm sure there are to some degree. And then what does funding like? Again, just out of curiosity.
On that end, it's interesting. So since we're a referral based agency, we're not necessarily the folks going out under the bridges and into the camps or into the shelters to find.
Right.
The folks we work with are doing that work. And by and large, they're working with a variety of agencies, the HUD-VASH program through Housing and Urban Development at the federal level, the Omaha Housing Authority here, or Sarpy Housing Authority, uh, to work the voucher angle to get them the subsidized housing, to get the money to pay for the project. And then the landlord ultimately to say, yes, we will accept that voucher, we will accept the subsidy. Once kind of those boxes have been checked, they get sent to us and they say, okay, we have the housing identified, it's paid for, and they are healthy, they're stable as much as we know them to be.
Mhm.
Can you give them furniture? Can you give them a bed to sleep on? Can you give them the pantry full of food that they need to get that first disability check in the bank, since they probably haven't had benefits before?
Right.
Um, so we get to come in again. Ron said it best. We get to be Santa Claus. We get to come in and say,
Yeah.
here's this goodie bag and the trailer full of stuff. That's for you at no cost. We'll move it in. We'll set it up for you, and then we leave. And then we may call you 2 or 3 weeks later and say, hey, the March Madness is on. We're going to have a party at the shop. We're going to have some fried tacos and some pop and some water, and we're just going to hang out for a couple of hours, and then we'll take you back. We'll pick you up. We'll drop you off. Um, that sort of work has an intangible return on it. It's hard to quantify. There's not dollars and cents linked to it. There's not necessarily um, an emotional response. And I won't say everyone leaves with a smile on their face, because it can be overwhelming to come into a space, a room full
Yeah.
of people you don't know.
Yeah, I'm
But what
sure.
everybody has is a common understanding of where they've come from and where they're at right now. For them to get comfortable with that, it starts here. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's something that we provide that's special that a lot of other places can't do without being very intentional and very invasive. And the veteran community, as we all know, isn't necessarily fond that all of the time.
It's true. Um, it sounded a moment ago, like you said, about helping them with benefits. Did I mishear, or is that correct that you guys try to help get checks in the mail for them where they can receive benefits in the
So the
VA?
caseworker on the front side will help them with that generally.
Okay.
We
Okay.
see it as our goal to provide them with enough food sometimes to get that first check in the bank where they're not sitting there and saying, "Oh, I've got this
Right.
lovely part-time now, but I don't have a way to feed myself for two
Yeah.
weeks until I get that check."
Okay.
Um, so we try to be very intentional about, again, giving a solid foundation for them to start on. Um, Expanded programming is coming hopefully here in the near future on our end on how we can continue to support those folks. We're not quite there yet, but it's our goal to sit down and be able to be a partner not only to the agencies we work with, the referral agencies that we work with, but also to the clients that we're serving from those referral agencies. So we've got A and B done really well. It's that C phase that we're trying to build out now as well. Um,
Yeah.
that's kind of the next chapter of moving veterans forward here, as
Yeah, but
Ron and I see it.
it seems like you guys have a very sturdy foundation. So to it makes sense to me when someone wants to grow slowly, really get their feet under them with A and B, as you say, and then slowly expand into C. Just the way I see it, it makes it that much stronger of a program. What are some, do you have any kind of upstanding or really cool success stories from your program?
Yeah, I'm gonna bring up Nathan.
Yeah.
We had a young kid. He's still in the Army Reserve, MP, and I do mean young. He's probably at the time he was maybe 24, 25 years old. Uh, but he had a need for speed. Got in trouble racing street bike on the streets. Got in trouble with the law. Became homeless. Uh, Worked the system. Got through the system, and we helped him out. And then he had community service he had to do, a lot of community service hours. So he did his hours, and he stuck around for almost 2 years as just a regular volunteer. While he was volunteering for us, he was working, at a gas station, scraping the barrel, barely making his bills. He built some relationships here at Moving Veterans Forward and with some other businesses. We got him a really good, high paid job uh, building and rebuilding video games that you see like in
Oh,
arcades and stuff,
yeah.
doing the motherboards. And we just got a phone call a month ago. He is now going to be a professional motorcycle racer. He's got a full ride sponsor. They're building his bike right now, and he's going to race competitively professionally.
Wow.
And I think
That,
it's 600cc throughout here in the Midwest, racing all over road racing. So that's just one of many success stories. I mean, we've had the guys where they were married, got into trouble, got into drugs and alcohol, got divorced,
mhm.
lost the kids, uh, come around full circle. They got their life put back together, started seeing the wife again, kind of dating, got remarried, and the family's back together. And he owns his own business, a landscaping company.
Wow. What
So
are you guys using some other resources to kind of connect them with, or um yeah, it just sounds like you guys are having awesome success. So I'm just curious what
Oh,
some
Ron's been doing this long enough to where he just has a natural network of partners,
okay.
of family. I mean, they are family to us at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Of anyone who's willing to step up and say we're going to take care of people who have said they're willing to sacrifice for us. Um, that's been built on Ron's back. It's been built on his shoulders. He's the one who has the sweat equity in this. Um, he won't tell you that because he's a modest and a humble guy. But
Is that why you're
um,
doing most of the talking?
yeah, yes, but I will tell you that much. Um, he's a great man to learn from. He honestly has a servant's heart when it comes to it. And I don't say that to be a cliche. Um, you don't get to where we're at. You don't get to help this population unless there's trust, there's respect, and there's understanding of where folks are coming from.
Yeah.
This is no judgment space. Nathan is a good example of that. When we have volunteers who come in who do have community service, whether it's court ordered or not. Um, Ron and I know about that just from an aspect administratively. We have to sign off on a sheet that says,
Right.
hey, they did
Right.
their time. No one else has any idea that that person is any different than them when they walk in the door. Uh, the same thing is true when a veteran walks in who was homeless, who wants to pick their furniture out with their caseworker here in the shop. They want to do that. We open our doors to them, and there is no judgment here from anybody in the room. So this has to be a neutral ground, a safe space, and a space where everyone's respected and can communicate. And sometimes that does lead to some tough conversations. Hey, you're moving
Right.
into a 100 square foot apartment. You don't need a sectional sofa. You don't need a queen size bed because you frankly don't have room for it. Do we have it? Would we love to provide it? Yes. So call us when you get to that point in your life. We hope to get there. But that's all been built on Ron's ideas, Ron's shoulders when it comes down to this, and that culture permeates from the bottom up.
Hmm.
One of our key volunteers here always tells the story. He goes, I always felt listened to and heard. His first day here, we were touring the potential to move into a new space. It's literally across the parking lot from where we're at now. So he was here on his first day. We toured that new space and we had a round table afterwards. And we went around the circle. What do you think? Is this a smart move? Is it not? Do the numbers make sense from a financial perspective? Do they not? And Matt will tell you himself that from day number one, he was asked what he thought, how he felt. And that continues for everybody at any point throughout our whole organization at any time. And I won't say we're special. I think that everybody tries to strive for that, but we live it every day. And we also are comfortable enough to call ourselves out when that's not happening and say, hey, we need to correct ourselves. You need to get back in marching order. So,
Well, there's an important difference when someone is told how they need to be helped versus someone listening to how they need to be helped. And even if you're probably right in knowing how someone should be helped, it doesn't change the fact that the reception is different if you just ask.
right. And again, we've got enough experience around our table that our coordinator who does the placements, who does our donations, she's been doing this for a couple of years. She knows how to ask those questions. When she gets a response that maybe isn't transparent, she knows how to thread that needle and ask the appropriate follow-up question or questions
Yeah.
to get to the root of the problem. You don't necessarily get that from a handbook or through watching a training video. You get it through
No.
experience.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we're here to support those folks who want to learn how to do that, and we're also here to support the folks who need the help because they may not know what they don't even need or do need at a certain point too. So again,
Yeah.
it's a very unique thing we get to do here, and Ron has always laid the foundation for that. Our volunteers live and breathe it every day. We have challenging days sometimes, I won't lie. Um, but they always come back and they're like, we tried our best some days. And sometimes that's all you can do in this situation.
Yeah.
We're not unaware of that reality too. We can only do what we can do at a certain point too.
Right.
Know
I
what
mean,
our lane is, and we try and do it really well. Yeah.
yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Is there so are there situations where someone might have to be removed from the program in terms of there's some guidelines, some reasonable ones, I'm sure, but like probably not being overly disruptive. I mean, there's situations and guidelines that have to be followed.
We try not to be overly particular when it comes. Again, we're a referral based agency, so they've been vetted, they've been
Right.
on through treatment programs, they've done what the work that the caseworker thinks that they need to do to get to us by and large.
Hmm.
And we have had some folks who come back a year, 2 years, 6 months down the line and say, hey, I fell back into my old bad habits and I'm back and I still need help. We don't ever want to be the reason that person goes back to that lifestyle ever.
Right.
It's not for us to judge. Again, this is a judgment free space when it comes
Right.
down. And the a HUD bash manager explained it to this way to me one time, and it made a lot of sense. He said that the rain cloud of homelessness isn't one thing. It's a million molecules coming together to build that rain cloud. And then when it rains, it really pours. So it could be that one extra molecule that does the difference, that
Mm,
causes the thunderstorm to happen. We don't want to be the molecule that said, no, we're not participating today because you've been here before. So,
right.
and frankly, that's also a challenge we've had to overcome as an organization because it wasn't always that way. But you have to learn how to adapt and flex to meet the needs and serve your clients. And that's just something that, again, based off of experience, we've learned we've had to do.
Yeah, I'm sure it's hard to make it a clearly defined line.
Yeah,
Coming to the positive side, right? So someone starts to get their life back on track when, or if they're even, they kind of move on to doing their own thing, where they're in a situation where they're in their own place, paying their own rent, doing that kind of thing. Does furniture go with them? All that.
oh yeah, whatever we give them, it's theirs to keep.
Okay.
Now I've had veterans, you know, we get them moved. They start out with a kind of an okay job, and then 6 months down the road, a year down the road, they've gotten an even better job. And now instead of going from like a studio apartment, they're now getting a two-bedroom apartment because they're doing really good at their job. They've
Hmm.
actually called me and say, "Hey, you remember you helped me a year ago, a year and a half ago? I still got that dresser because I got a new place, I got new furniture," and they've donated that stuff back. That would be the
Awesome.
only time. That would be the only time I would take something from one of our veterans we assisted. But
Right.
no, once we give them the items, it's theirs to keep.
And so then what's the measurement for when if they're even required to, like when they go off on their own? Like if when you said that guy went to like a two bedroom, do they kind of get to where they have a job and then it's like, okay, are you good to do this now? How does that portion of it work?
That's really case by case, I think.
Okay.
The HUD Bash program that by and large funds the housing voucher program across the whole country, in the scheme of things, is relatively new. It was started in 2013, 2014-ish.
Hmm.
So the scheme of federal programming it's pretty new. And they're learning things as they're going along too. When they
Okay.
first started, they were really targeting the homeless population at that point was Vietnam, Cold War, first Gulf War era veterans.
Right.
When you've been on the street for that long, your physical health is not
Oh yeah.
necessarily what my physical health would be at my age. You're probably 10, 15, 20 years advanced what your physical age is versus what
Yeah.
your physical health is. They're learning now that we're getting to the war on terror, Afghanistan, Iraq, Gulf War vets who are homeless now, that they're a little bit younger, they're a little bit better when it comes to their physical health. So they're living a little bit longer. Previously, with the Vietnam and post Vietnam era vets, they weren't necessarily staying in the program long term. They were either becoming homeless again or they were frankly passing away from just the elements that they had exposed themselves to for so long.
Right. Right.
Um, the HUD Bash program is having to adapt itself to sit down and say, okay, we used to have people in the program for 4 or 5 years, and then they would either term out or they would expire, to put it politely.
Right.
Um, Now we're seeing people who are in the program for 10, 15, 20 years that
Oh,
are younger or healthier, so that turnover isn't happening. And they don't have the availability and funding to sit down and say, okay, we can help more people, which is a good thing. We want people to stay
yeah.
housed,
Yeah.
but if they have disabilities, if there are physical ailments, mental ailments that disallow them from working and they can only make what is max disability and maybe Social Security if they're lucky at that age, they're not getting that job. They're not necessarily um, moving into that two-bedroom apartment. So long as they're housed, as far as the scheme of the federal programming around it, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a win. It doesn't matter if they move on up or out of the program. We don't want them to fall back out and then have to re-enter the program. That is never a positive result.
Right.
But if they stay where they're at, that's satisfactory.
Okay.
Um, for us, again, we don't want to be the reason they're not housed.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so if we can help them stay housed, that's what we want to do. And that's something we're learning now too. Hey, if we have someone who we moved 10 years ago, they have the same couch, the same mattress, the same bed frame that we gave them 10 years ago. So we're working to adapt our programming to say, okay, if you were with us 10 years ago, we want to be able to replace those items for you because
Hmm.
not everything we give you is new. We understand. It may not last another 10 years.
Yeah.
So if you need a new mattress, we want to be able to provide you with that. But again, that's part of kind of the learning curve of the longevity of the program that we provide. It's a great thing. It's a good thing that people aren't going becoming homeless again because they're housed. But
Hmm.
the barriers to employment, to moving in to their own space that isn't subsidized for them may not be the reality for a chunk of that population. I won't say it's a majority of them, but for a portion of them, that's not necessarily the reality anymore. And that's something we're learning. That's something the federal programs are learning. Our partner agencies are learning now because this, it's not a new problem, but the way we're solving the problem is fairly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to say it for sure. So, kind of taking it back, how did the idea of this all come about and kind of work its way into what it is now?
The what had happened was I got injured in Iraq and slowly worked my way back to Omaha, Nebraska. I was still hospitalized. I was in the Omaha VA, and
Okay.
I'd been for a couple of months. You know, when you're in a hospital setting, that's where you're living. You start to make buddies and friends. And I got to be good friends with a Marine. His first name is Mike. The you know, he was doing really good. He was kind of excited, and he knew he was going to be getting. He was in the HUD-VASH program. He knew he was going to be getting an apartment, and it was like a couple of days before he was going to be discharged. His depression just hit him really hard. It's like, well, what's
Mm,
the matter, Mike? He's like, I've been homeless, and I've been up here for between being homeless and being in the VA hospital, it was almost 3 years. He had nothing to his name except for whatever he had in his hospital room.
mhm.
It's like, well, my kid went off to college. You know, I got a bed, a dresser, but dealing with the broken back, I was like, I can't move it. But if I get some friends and family members, you can have the stuff my boy had, and I think I could come up with some other stuff. Well, my family and friends moved Mike on April 1st, 2010, and
Yeah.
it was probably about a month later, I got discharged, and maybe another month and a half after that, Mike's caseworker called me. She had another veteran. Hey, you helped Mike. I got this other guy. Do you think you can help him? I said, well, I'm still broke, but I'll see what I can do. So I started talking to friends and some Army buddies, and we got that veteran taken care of. Well, while this was going on, I was wanting to do something because my military career was over. I was done. And I was praying to God, God, you got to give me something to do. I cannot sit on a couch and just rot away.
Yeah.
And
That's
it
dangerous
took a
for
couple,
sure.
it took a couple moves. At that time, I wasn't seeing the light, but that guy was showing me this is what I want you to do. And
Yeah.
it was probably that fall, finally, the brick hit my head. It's like, okay, this is what God wants me to do. So then it first started out like first year and a half, it was kind of like a hobby, kind of cool thing once in a while. And then I just started seeing the demand that caseworkers were moving veterans into apartments, handing them the keys, shutting the door, and you're standing there in a totally empty apartment. Talk about
Yeah.
setting someone up for failure.
Yeah.
That's 100% right there. So I actually went down, talked to the VA, said, "Hey, I'm willing to do this, but I need help because I was still pretty broke uh, physically, and I had no money. We were storing furniture in the basement, in the garage of my house. My wife wasn't very happy, and then it just kind of. But you know what? Blessings were coming. I got some donation checks. People were donating furniture. Then we moved to a storage facility. 15 years forward now, we're in a nice warehouse, a nice facility, but that's how it started.
That's
Granted,
fantastic.
I would have rather gotten into something with like kittens and puppies and something light on the back, but That
Hey,
was
you can always expand. Everybody needs a bed, and then maybe everybody gets a dog too.
oh yeah. Well, we
Don't give them any eggs.
yeah. See, one of my mottos is if I get a phone call or one of my volunteers gets a phone call from a veteran, hey, I'm in this situation and we've had almost anything you can think of fall out of the sky. They're in a situation. Before you hang up with them, you got to give them at least one person or one organization's name and a phone number. You cannot hang up that veteran until you complete at least one of those two things. I'm not
Yeah,
going to say, well, I wish I could help you, but I can't, and hang up. That's the worst thing you can do to somebody when they're reaching out for help, especially a
yeah,
veteran, because if a veteran's going to reach out for help, you know they've hit rock bottom.
yeah. Because we're not very
So
good about asking for help.
that's
So,
that's one of the mottos I live by. That I may not be able to help you, but I built such a big Rolodex of people. You know what? I can't help you, but this person can. And I give them their name and number and wish them good luck. And I've told them, hey, if you ain't getting the answers you need, call me back. We'll find somebody else.
fantastic. Well, yeah, it's an awesome organization story. Has anybody reached out to you for advice with trying to get this started in another city as well?
I won't say that the old McDonald's franchise model hasn't crossed the table before. Can we do this in other communities? Um, the challenge there is Omaha, to a certain extent, is special. We have Offutt Air Force Base here. Stratcom is here.
Yeah,
Uh, the military history here is strong. Not every community has that. Not every community has a Warren Buffett living in their backyard where there's philanthropic dollars to support what we do.
yeah.
Uh, Omaha has more nonprofits per capita than any other city in the country.
I didn't know
So,
that.
what happens here is unique when you're kind of at the top of that list. Um, but that doesn't mean the need isn't in other communities. Does Denver
Yeah,
have a need? Does Colorado Springs, Dallas, Des Moines? Yes, they do. Do we have a model that is perfectly copy paste to anywhere else in the country? Someday we might. I don't think we're
yeah,
there today. Um, but that also doesn't mean we're not trying to be something that can be replicated.
yeah. But if
We have a
someone
system.
if
Go
someone in
ahead.
another city is interested in replicating it, I mean, are you guys open to them reaching out via your website and on a fact-finding mission and trying to ask questions and see if it's something they can put together where they are?
For sure. We have a sister chapter in northern Iowa that's actually run by one of Ron's Army buddies.
Hmm.
Uh, but I think John would even tell you that the amount of work it took to get him where he's at now, it takes a servant leader to get there, and it takes someone who's frankly willing to work for free and do backbreaking work because you're moving dressers and beds and in some cases washing machines and couches and everything.
Hmm.
Uh, it's not something everyone's going to be willing to do. And we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver to any veteran in need, whether it's here, whether it's in Des Moines, Dallas, Denver. So we're trying to be very conscious of that. That being said, if someone wants to try and do what we do anywhere else, I don't think we're opposed to sitting down and saying these are the lessons we've learned. We're
Yeah.
about 15 years old at this point, and there are certainly some things that we would probably do differently if we could go back in time. But
Yeah.
there
I
are
mean,
also some things I don't change by and large.
you could save people time, headache, and money, even though if wherever the money comes from, saving that money because it's a precious resource, just like time. Um, yeah, being able to save them all that and just have a conversation so that they can get started, on the right foot. So,
I mean, up until a handful of years ago, the volunteers and Ron were sitting down and saying, "What can we give out of our paychecks to make sure we're meeting our bills?" Like that's
yeah.
again, that's not. Um, is that sustainable? Not necessarily, but that's coming from the crusty nonprofit executive here, not veteran on the front line doing the hard work. Um,
Well, It's not always a question of is it sustainable, it's how long is it sustainable? Could I
Yeah,
make
right.
this work for 6 months until we can make a change or afford a change or, whatever the benchmark is. But, yeah, I get that where you're really scraping to make ends meet. And it's a question of, can we sustain long enough to really see this? And, from my
And
perspective,
if our
however long
board
you
treasurer,
had to sustain it,
he
you
would
did.
tell
Do what?
he would tell you there were months that our board treasurer would say if there were months where we had 2 months worth of money in the bank and you weren't necessarily sure where the next month's rent was going to come from,
Hmm.
but you figured it out. Yep. Again, is that sustainable? Not necessarily, but um, we're here today and we're probably stronger than we've ever been because of the lessons we've learned from that, I think.
Good.
Um, it's not a bad thing. I think some people have to experience the hardship to understand that you are running a business, you are giving back need, and there's an intangible, again, benefit to that you can't put a dollar on. So just because
Yeah.
you help 1,000 veterans a year doesn't necessarily mean you're making $10,000 per veteran. That's not what it should be about.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's not what we're about either. So if we have to buy certain things here and there for certain situations, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. Can we do it for everybody? Not necessarily all the time, but also are aware enough and have enough experience around us to sit down and say, okay, is this a good judgment call or is it not? We keep each other accountable because of that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that's all the questions I have for this interview. Is there anything else stands out that maybe I didn't ask about, or maybe you like to make sure people know before we move on to the next interview here?
They're going to be talking to you next. So,
It's true.
and
Yeah.
I'm going to step away for a second. So,
Yeah, no, I think maybe at the end of our interview, maybe if I think of something, I'll throw it out at that time.
Perfect. Yeah. All right. Well, in that case, for listeners, it'll be about 2 weeks, and for us, it's going to be about 2 seconds to 2 minutes. But we will sign off here. And Joe, Ron, thank you guys so much for coming out and talking about moving veterans forward. It sounds like an awesome program, and I hope, if nothing else, this generated some interest from people from other places to do a similar thing because I think you guys are making a fantastic difference. So thank you guys for coming on.
Oh, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
We thank you for listening, and we hope you got something helpful out of this content.
If you're looking for more, be sure to check out our resources tab on our website.
Unbroken-veterans.com.
And if you're looking for ways to connect, be sure to reach out to us on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn.
Until next time, remember to check your zeros, fives, tens, and 25s.